Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's event in the aftermath of the Syrian Revolution. My name is Marwa Daoudy, and I'm the Saif Robash Chair in Arab Studies and an Associate Professor of International Relations at the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies. I apologize for the slight delay in starting this session. We are live with Yassin Al-Haj Saleh, who is in Syria, in Damascus, and unfortunately, we've been struggling with the internet connection, and we tried different means to get him on board, as I know you're very eager to hear him talk, especially that he's live from Syria, and also hear Muzna Dureid, who's also with us today, and I'm very privileged and happy to have her as well. And we will do our best to get Yassin on board as we start our conversation, Muzna, and otherwise I'll have a separate event recording Yassin and having the recording released, or trying to have him online live once he's out of Syria and available to come back to that meeting. But I'm still hopeful that we will manage to get him on board today. So I'm very privileged today to welcome Yassin and Muzna to have a Syrian perspective from inside and outside on what the extraordinary event that has taken place in Syria on the 8th of December, 2024. The last time we met with Yassin and Muzna was in Montreal in November 23 of last year, and we had no expectations that we would meet again the following year to discuss the new Syria. And also, Muzna, you came to our university, our center, the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies, to discuss the earthquake in the Northwest once. Yassin gave a brilliant talk last year as well on Syria and his trajectory as a dissident and public intellectual, and also a former prisoner detainee. And I will shortly introduce you both, and again, hoping that Yassin will join us shortly. So Yassin Al-Haj Saleh is a Syrian writer, intellectual, and former political prisoner. In 1980, while studying medicine in Aleppo University, and as he was only 19 years old, he was arrested by the Hafiz al-Assad regime because of his membership in the Syrian Communist Party Bureau. He remained in prison for 16 years and 14 days. He returned to medical school upon his release, but never practiced medicine. Instead, he turned to writing and is now one of Syria's leading and most vocal writers. Yassin went back to Syria in January. He's still there. He's been just back from Sweden as well and visiting the whole country. And we will have his inputs hopefully today or another occasion when I record him. And Muzna Dureid, I'm very privileged also to have an activist, a feminist, a very prominent activist Syrian, who's Syrian-Canadian, leader of women's movement, but also of New Visions for Syria, an activist on the ground, a former refugee with over a decade of experience creating lasting change in conflict zones. Muzna is currently serving as Advocacy and Partnership Manager at the Nobel Women's Initiative. She previously worked as Senior Development Officer for the White Helmets who have been relentlessly supporting the population during the repression, the bombardments in the Northwest mainly, and also who were the recipients of the alternative Nobel Peace Prize. During her tenure, she contributed to saving over 125,000 lives. This is a privilege, Muzna, as well to have you. And because of the internet connection, I'll start the conversation with you. I was hoping to get Yassin to start as long as he could last. We will start with you, Muzna, and speak possibly. I wanted to start and ask you, you went back to Damascus last December as soon as you got the news. You went with your family, and I imagine the moment of joy, hope, liberation that you were experiencing as you went back to Damascus, but also possibly you were telling me you found the city and the people so tired, worn out by more than 13 years of war, of repression, of corruption. Could you share with us your impressions and tell us possibly what your plan is, what you think is the future and what should be done? And then we'll have a back and forth question and answers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marwa, for this kind event, and also for inviting me for to meet with your audience as usual. So I really enjoy the conversation with you. First, I want to just like to say sorry for the audience. You may like expecting like having Yasin with us. I'm very sorry, and this is like actually explains everything about like what's this the current situation in Syria. Just like we can't even offer like a one hour of call with people inside Syria. So yeah, and just like returning to the visit to Syria, it was like one of the best moments in my life. It just like I can't describe the emotions. Um, like also capturing all of the joy, the happiness of people that you can notice in the street is like how people are keep celebrating despite that having a lot of like problems, a lot of crises in Syria, but people and even any clarity about the future, but people keep celebrating in each corner in Damascus and in Syria. And this is also like an indicator about like how people been oppressed for the 14 years and how they are trying now to express their joy and also like celebrating in a public space their freedom and liberation actually. Um, and but in the same time you feel it's like how is it sad, how is this poor the country, how is people are just trying to survive with the minimum. When you enter the country and like when you walk in the streets you can feel it's like as if you are entering the time machine, like to get back 14 years or me or even like more than 14 years back in the time where nothing has been changed in the country. There's no rehabilitation for any like public institutions or like spaces, and actually the level of like pollution in the air because of the lack of power. There's like only 2 hours per day. Each 12 hour there's like 1 hour of electricity, and people rely on like solar panels, on also generators, and the level of pollution in the air is really hard concerning because you can't breathe there. Just like it's a lot of because of the generators that are like working around the day, that causing a lot of pollution over the last like 14 years. As well also the how it's like the city itself has been changed in a way to accommodate like checkpoints, to accommodate all of the military presence in the city. And even after the fall of the regime, there's like the military presence, it's still there. It's like you see it's like how checkpoints been built it in a way to last for for years, and to also to put like a pressure on civilians to oppressing them, and also as of like a threat on their daily life when they are passing in the streets and moving from area to area. um Also it's like the darkness during after the during the days, like when there's as if there's no power. So the when you walk in the street there's nothing, there's no lights, nothing, just like you walk in a way it's like you don't know what's gonna happen. And even for the cars, so a lot of it's like as if you are visiting North Korea, I would say. It just like it's been locked. The country was locked for years, and now there's like a kind of like refreshing and like a relief for people to understand what happened in the past years. While the level of destruction is really also scary. It's like I visited also my neighborhood, which is like in the south of Damascus. It's called El Kadam, in the borders with the Daraya and Mukhayyam Yarmouk camp. And like I really asked, like I heard from my relatives about like the bombardments and how the whole like area was destroyed, but I didn't realize to what extent this means when you visit this area. And actually, I barely like I was able to recognize the location of our home and also the streets and everything. Um, I've been trying also to find like the exact location of our apartment in among the rubbles that been there, and I was just like able to do so the approximate location through the marble destroyed from our kitchen. And this is also very sad because like you see it's like how cities and like half of cities like just totally destroyed, families also swept out with from the bombardments and like from the siege that been like imposed for 5 years in this area. um just like it was like, yeah, I feel is and like how the people in these areas paid the highest price, because like from my relatives and family members who are like displaced from south of Damascus to the north, after the agreement between Turkey and Russia, to swap like the residents of eastern Ghouta and south of Damascus with the Afrin residents. Um, they can't now get back because there is no place to stay. It's like I stayed in a hotel, which is so costly, by the way. Just like we imagine Syria, it's not expensive. It's super expensive to afford the basic needs for people. And it's also weird when you stay in a hotel in your country because you don't have like a place to stay. And same applies for IDPs. It's like we have like a around like 4 millions of IDPs in Syria, and they can't get back because it literally takes years for reconstruction and like to get back to at least normal for them, which is also poses a lot of heavy concerns on how they can also survive in an IDP camps or like in northern Syria, whereas like also the situation was earlier was like imposed earlier as a like a temporary solution for displaced people. And also it's just like the way how we are trying to connect people with like their family members, with those who have been detained or killed, or the mass graves that been also identified in Syria. It's also one of the specifically in these areas in Damascus and also in eastern Ghouta, it's really scary because like we are dealing also with the joy of the liberation, but also the consequences of these 14 years of revolution. And this is like very visible. It's like it's not only for people who are involved, but everyone can also notice this. Sorry, I see it's like a Yassin
I
joined.
think Yassin has joined us, but I want you to finish, Muzna.
Yeah, yeah, it's like done. Let's just like
Okay, so
yeah.
thank you, Coco Tate. Our wonderful program manager managed to get Yassin on board. Yassin, can you hear us? Yassin? Can you hear us, Yassin? It's okay. We'll try to get Yassin. We're working on it. And he can jump in anytime, Coco, if you manage to get the connection. We're trying through different means. Okay, I'll let you have him jump in whenever it's possible. I just want to say, Muzna, everything you've lived and seen is what we know about the water pollution, the air pollution, the fact that everything is in rubbles, the crony capitalism that the country has experienced in the hands of the Assad regime since 14 years, having this wealth gap between the super rich elites who put their money outside, evading, of course, like all of the European countries being outside of America, and pumping the resources of the country. More than half of the population does not have access to clean water. We know that there are still remaining a lot of unexploded ordnances which are still killing children and people, landmines, the toxicity of the rubbles. However, 500,000 Syrians who were refugees and outside of the country have returned to Syria since December, according to the UNHCR. So there is an immense hope here of rebuilding, of restarting, right? Of restoring one's dignity by being back in your own home as a Syrian citizen and not being hosted or being seen as a burden outside. Did you feel that hope still, despite the fatigue, despite the pollution, despite the fact that there's no electricity, no water, etc.?
Uh, yeah, it's like if we wanted to talk about like the return of Syrians as refugees or as like refugees, like I mean in Western countries or like in neighboring countries, so we have 2 points. The first one, that not all of Syrians can get back to Syria because of the legal aspects of their like a permit or like a legal status in Western countries. And for refugees in neighboring countries, I think they don't have like any other options. Like even Syria, as it is now, the status quo in Syria right now, it's much easier for them to stay and to survive than staying in Lebanon, where there's like discrimination, where there's like also Israeli war against Lebanon, and at least as also the same applies for refugees in Turkey and other neighboring countries. So I think the notion of the return for Syrians has like a many like interpretations based on their situation, the geopolitical situation, and all of what's related to their stay in these countries. And also, but there's hope. Yeah, all of us wanted to, just like we've been working for the 14 years, just like to get back to this like a moment, and like to have the freedom to get back to Syria and to visit our country. But just like to be honest, it's like because of the current situation in Syria, I don't see the visit that Syrians are doing now um, gonna last for like long time, because the infrastructure in the country doesn't allow for us to stay, and also the humanitarian situation, the capacity of the country will be also a question for all of us when we consider like returning back to Syria in a like a permanent situation.
So there is also a big political transition happening, right? And you've seen it when you were there. The so-called transitional period is in the making until March. We heard that Ahmed al-Shara Jolani, in his nom de guerre, has been appointed as the president of Syria for that transitional period. He's also authorized to form a temporary legislative council for the phase. The revolution has been declared victorious, and this is like wonderful when everybody had buried and assumed the revolution to be dead and defeated. So this is a victory for us Syrians and us who supported the revolution to see it was brought to success. However, the period coming ahead will be very difficult. How inclusive is that transitional period, do you think? I know there are statements about including all communities, all different currents. There's also a tension with the military groups. How much will they be included within an army? Will they give up the weapons, or will they be separate, military blocks? And women also. I was discussing with you, Muzna. Are women really included in that? They were pillars of the revolution. There have been some appointments. Are they only cosmetic? How do you think? Are the statements corresponding to the reality? Is that really being implemented in your view?
Yeah, I think like Syrians and the international community heard a lot of good words from Ahmed al-Shara and the caretaker government. But I think the question is if he gonna like channel these words into actions, and the lack of clarity when it comes to the next steps and what's the plan. It's really concerning because even for people who are working in the civil society, who are just also connected with the international community, with the like also visiting the government, being like also active on the ground. They don't know it's like what's happening and what's coming up in the near future. And this like lack of a clarity will cause for sure just like the exclusion of so many like people and mainly women because it just like to give you like an example about also the situation we had in at Syrian the Syrian Women's Political Movement our first conference in Damascus 2 weeks ago, the first week of January, and because of the sanctions and all the complexity surrounding the to set up like a meeting or conference inside Syria, so we opted to just that we need to go to Syria to occupy our the physical space and like to claim our physical space there, and this is should be like sooner than later because we may not have this privilege to have like physical like a conference there. And because of the all of the restrictions on transferring money to Syria and the civil society work, so we did it from
Hi, hi, do
Oh,
you hear me?
Yassin is online. Yassin, can you hear us? Hello? I feel
Yeah,
like
I do.
okay,
I do
تفضل
finally.
Yassin. Please tell us your impressions. You're live in Damascus. How is it going? What are your impressions?
Right now, Muzna was just speaking. Maybe she should finish her statement.
no, go ahead. It's just like you are like the uh it's like you have like a lot of connection issues, so yeah, go ahead
We'll
now.
come back to Muzna. We want to make sure we have you online as possible when it's possible. Please go ahead, Yassin.
Thank you, Marwa. So I've been here for a month. It is very unique and a special experience. Something that you don't live two times in your life, and for many people they don't live such a thing. Yeah, it is a privilege. It is fortunate that I've witnessed this. I've been active politically since I was a teenager, since I was 17 now. So it is close to half a century, and it's good that I am seeing this while still alive. Uh, so it is a big challenge at the same time. I mean, it is a great finish, a great ending of a nasty, criminal, inhuman chapter of our history. At the same time, it is a very precarious beginning. The challenges are huge. The burden is backbreaking indeed. We inherited from the Assad rule and from the Ba'athist rule, which had been ruling the country for 62 years, the Assad family for 54 years, very long time. So it is a huge challenge in the meaning that every aspect of life, you see it when you walk in the cities. And I visited Damascus, Aleppo, Homs, Latakia, Sweda. So I saw many places, and you feel all the time that things were, for a good time, they have been going down. They are dilapidated. Buildings, streets, services, everything needs renovation and upgrading. So this is what I am afraid of, that we Syrians, after these long years, long decades of oppression, of lack of representation, that will not get help to rebuild and reconstruct the country. At the same time, the challenges are not restricted to the infrastructure and the services. It is also about politics and about, I would say, about morals of the people. And to be honest, I don't see that these two sides are given the priority that they deserve. These are within our mandate and our duty. I saw what happened yesterday of that the armed people. Maybe I am getting a bit quick. I am jumping to what happened yesterday, but I don't see it as a very good thing. It is, to say the least, disrespectful to our struggle. That the armed people elected in a way or authorized Ahmed Shara to be the president, and he would elect the sort of body to issue laws and regulations. This is not very positive, in my opinion, and it means that they are giving priority to reconstruction rather than reconstructing morals of the people and the political sphere. The political sphere is first. Yes, the country is under huge, has suffered from very big and for a long time tendencies of deconstruction, but the priority is still a political one. It is not about the economy. Economy is second, in my opinion. And I don't see that the new administration is aware of this.
Yassin, some are saying there's a lot of opacity in the decision-making process on purpose to keep people a bit in the dark while the decisions are being taken. The National Unity Conference has been postponed. It was supposed to be held early January. It was postponed to February, and people are saying it's not even happening now. So this transition period seems to you as consolidating Ahmed al-Sharia's power over the country, which might not be so transitional and so not so much inclusive. How much of that is happening, or should we think that this is a transition while security is being implemented and then there will be democratic transition and governance? Or are we going to what some are calling a Chinese model, which is economic reforms, liberalization, investments, trade, but the political sector is kept closed and within an authoritarian system?
Well, it'll be an exaggeration to expect democracy to come from this new from HTS. Look, I don't think that we are heading towards Islamist government, and I mean the models that we saw in Egypt or in Afghanistan or no, we are not heading. So most probably we are not heading that direction. At the same time, no, we are not heading towards democracy. So democracy comes from Democrats, not from neo-Islamists. I don't know how to call them. Actually, a few years ago, they were Salafi jihadis. Now they are no longer Salafi jihadis. They are no longer those rigid Islamists, but you don't know what to call them. So I think they tend to represent to allow some level of representation, but it can lie in what Albert Horani and Philippe Khoury said about the late Ottoman rule and actually early after independence Syria politics of notables. So communities will be represented most probably, but they will be represented by their notables, by the ones who are known, maybe rich, maybe always male, religious leaders, people known in their communities. So what are excluded in this model of representation, what are excluded are people like us who represent political plurality rather than confessional or communitarian plurality. So this is what I think they moving toward this model, and of course I don't approve of this. It is, and many people, myself in a way included, are still breathing or reclaiming the country in a way, and happy that the regime has fallen. But in time, this will not be enough to that we overthrow a very brutal, very criminal regime. People will expect to be represented, to be respected, to the rule of law, and I don't see that we are moving. Well, it is still less than 2 months, but I don't see that we are moving in that direction. The problem is now is that the new administration is not transparent at all. They haven't spoken to the population that they intend to do this or that, and they will not do this or that. There are no promises whatsoever to the Syrian people. And I think this is a mistake. They should say something. They can send symbolic gestures about the direction in which they about to move, and to express you don't have to solve all the problems overnight, but you can express your respect to your people. This is very important, and you can find words for this, and you can find gestures, and you can meet, for instance, the families of the people who are disappeared, or the families of the people who were killed, the martyrs. We have so many ways for the ones in power now to come closer to the population.
Which is not happening yet, right? But there's also another aspect. The 2012 Constitution yesterday was announced is annulled, and all exceptional laws are revoked. The drafting of a new constitution, wouldn't that be an opportunity or a platform for all currents, all intellectuals, all political leniences to get involved in drafting that constitution, which will really define what the new Syria will be, what the laws will be? And there are talks about going back to the 1950 constitution, adapting it. Will it make Islam as the jurisprudence or the reference, or will it be open? What do you think? Will there be a chance there to have the national dialogue that is much needed for Syria?
Well, we have all sorts of rumors, and that they talked about a national dialogue conference that was scheduled on January 4, and this was very early and premature, extremely premature. Now it is postponed to be held on February 2. And now after yesterday's meeting, it is not clear that there will be ever this national dialogue conference or national conference or whatever. So things are not clear at all. And again, the lack of transparency that they haven't people knows about their decisions from Telegram, which is, I don't know, to be honest, for one, I don't know what's Telegram, and I don't have this this connection, I don't know what, and many people are like this. So one may comment, Ahmed Shara said that we are moving from the revolution to the state. Well, Telegram is not the way that states address their people. It is rather media of secret organizations, to my very poor knowledge about this. So I don't, well, let me say, maybe I am giving an impression, a pessimist impression. This is not what I mean. I, I, I've been very positive about what has happened in the country, but it is frustrating that the ones who are in power are not talking to the people and making things clear. They are not helping themselves, they are not helping us, and they are not helping themselves as I see it. So there's something hidden. Is there something hidden power doing things this way? I don't know if there are regional or international powers that are causing this hesitancy or this lack of clarity and transparency. Today, Qatar's emir is in Damascus, and it seems that Ahmed Shara will visit his first visit outside Syria, to Saudi Arabia, which, well, one cannot be but concerned about the ceilings of freedoms and rights when it comes to the regional powers. While at the same time, I am very wary of what Western powers are saying. They are concerned not about human rights, not about democracy, not about the unity of the Syrian people. They have their own agenda, and they kept the sanctions so far. They see how crippled the country is, and they are still pushing their own narrow-minded and semi-colonial agenda by stressing minority rights, while they didn't care about rights in the country for 14 years. This is, I cannot find words to describe how unethical and how inhuman and how, well, honestly, how colonial is this? Well, for minority rights, Assad's regime was the right thing for them. Okay, kill the majority and keep the minority rights, and you are great. This agenda is not about democracy. It is not about the Syrian people. It is not about human rights. It is very strange that they are not stressing these values while stressing their own agenda. And of course, under the table, they are concerned about Israel, which proven to be a continuation of the Assad regime by other means. The same day the Assad regime stopped bombarding in the country, Israel started it against the poor capacities of the Syrian army, and occupied larger areas. So, as you see, it is very big. It is very difficult, very complex situation, and you don't have honest and helpful powers in this very difficult situation.
It's worth reminding the audience, Yassin and Muzna, that Israel has occupied the buffer zone that was brokered in 1974 by the US, by the way, in violation, has captured 30% of Syria's water, is almost 15 kilometers away from Damascus in total violation of international law, and also has destroyed 80% of the naval, aerial, military capabilities of a country which did not threaten it or declared war or anything, supposedly to preempt any potential capacity for Syria to stand on its own or to defend itself. So this is done in total violation, occupation of land, of water, and that's a major threat for the new regime. We know that Turkey is also occupying in the north. The Americans have boots on the ground, have also bombed the eastern part of the country as soon as the Assad regime collapsed. All of these different threats are really shaking the situation, making the new rule very fragile and the situation very fragile. The new regime, as you said, is speaking more to Saudi Arabia, to Turkey, to Qatar, to the US, to the European Union than to its own population. What do you think about the potential for, and I want Muzna also, please, to intervene, national reconciliation in that context? Is there a possibility for national reconciliation, but also accountability for the crimes that happened since not only the last 14 years, we can think about the 4 or 5 last decades. Is there a possibility for transitional justice? Have you seen any discussions around these items? And there I'd like to ask Yassin and Muzna as well.
Not really so far. I mean, they are still following the regime criminals, but also the lack of transparency obscures what's happening. There are reports, and the true reports, about killing people who were not fighting in a certain town close to Homs. And it seems that they apologized for this, but there are no clear mechanisms about transitional justice or even symbolic gestures that I alluded to a couple of minutes ago. So yes, there's a need. There's a priority to solve and to address the issue of issues related to transitional justice, where's the crimes, where's knowing the truth, where's the enforced disappearance. We have a huge dossier related to transitional justice, but not clear. Again, I'm afraid that their idea of moving forward is to amnesty all the crimes or most of them. But at the same time, you find some statements stressing the issue of transitional justice. So far, it is less than 2 months. Things are not clear at all, and they should be clear. It is not very difficult to make things clear, and it is not too much for us to ask that. We need clarity about these things. Again, I'm afraid that this orientation towards regional and international powers is dimming the situation, is making things maybe clearer to the regional and international powers, but not at all clearer for us Syrians.
Muzna, what would you like to say on transitional justice, accountability, reconciliation?
Yeah, I think the approach of the caretaker government and Ahmed Shara, it's just like to, as Yassin mentioned, it's just like to turn the page and to through amnesty to all. And this is because I think if we gonna adopt any kind of investigations or a clear roadmap about justice and accountability in Syria, so then a lot of investigation should be imposed on him as well and on HTS. So this is why to close this door of justice on all involved conflict parties will be also give him more ability to stay in the power and also to protect himself and give him also immunity. We have seen the visit of the head of ICC, the prosecutor for ICC, Karim Khan, which is also I think this is for the first time we have such a high level visit from ICC to Syria. But I think we can't also rely on ICC because it has also its limitations. We saw this in Sudan, for example, with al-Bashir, and also all the political aspects that surrounding ICC mandate, the sanctions that will be imposed from the US on ICC because of the warrant against Netanyahu. So I think the whole concept of justice and accountability now on the edge because of also the situation in Gaza and the human rights violations that we have seen over the last 2 years. On the top of this, also his situation as like the head of HTS and all the crimes that have been committed by the Salvation government in Idlib and northern Syria. While in the same time, we are seeing how is like the Syrian civil society anticipating the work on the grounds. Like they gathered, they had like first Syrian conference in Damascus on justice and accountability, and focusing on specifically on the forced disappearance, and also putting like a pressure on the international community to advance this file as like one of the priority for Syrians themselves. But I think there's like a political appetite to turn the page in on justice, and because of the political atmosphere worldwide, not only in Syria, and Syria part of this, and maybe also because of the justice and accountability file, it's huge in Syria. So if we wanted to define what like victimhood in Syria should be, it's going to be like a huge, from like land rights, assets, to also for disappearance, also to torture, and also to like so many aspects should be at the table, and compensation should be also delivered to all victims in Syria. So I think this is also adds like a lot of heavy lifting on this file, and also adding to the current situation, the economic situation, the country is on the edge of the economic collapse if there's no sanctions will be lifted in the near future, and the humanitarian situation. So all of these will push for like less maybe steps, and less like serious like actions from the government and also from the international community to work on this file. Unfortunately, this is like also one of the like the nightmares for Syrians, because like we can't rely on stability for Syria in the future without having at least like a truth and reconciliation work that is serious, and also integrated in the work of the government itself at all levels, like not only to have like justice and accountability as a concept that stands alone within the country, current situation, and also the future.
And there have been cases, historical cases, where transitional justice has taken place after massacres and trying to bring some reconciliation. I mean, we know the case of Rwanda and others, but as you say, the genocide in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank by Israel, the occupation of Syria by the different parties is adding more pressure on how to do that process harmoniously. I think there's another element also, is the military element. We saw with December that the political alternative failed. The opposition groups have tried for 14 years and more. What succeeded was the military solution. Now, my question is, Yassin, you're just back from Sweda, and Sweda has armed groups which are very active, Daraa as well. Yesterday, another announcement was the dissolution of the Syrian army and the reconstitution, the idea that it will be restructured at some point. How will that happen? Because that will also determine the peace and stability of the future Syria. How will these groups integrate the new national army? Will they keep their separate military force? What was your impression, Yassin, in Sweda? And also, there's a very crucial aspect, which is the relation with the Syrian Defense Forces, Kurdish-led, US-sponsored, which are very reluctant to give up their military bloc, and they're having like discussions with HTS. The tone is peaceful, conciliatory, but there's no agreement yet about renouncing the military power. What is your assessment on the ground now that you've been to Sweda and other areas?
Yeah. So again, I think the burden of proof lies on the side of Damascus, of the ones in the new administration. It is, of course, I want to see Syria unified geographically, and the armies are monopolized by the Syrian army or by the Syrian security, whatever, or as they call it, the Syrian Ministry of Defense. It is okay. This is the right thing to do. But there should be political initiatives. Things should be clear on the political front about the rights, about the representation, about transitional justice, and about that power will not be partisan as it had been for more than 60 years in the country. So we don't have science that things will be really, if not democratic, at least respectful, and people feel represented and okay with the new political system. So things are not clear. I support, for one, like many Democrats and everyone on the democratic spectre in the country, political solution to these problems, whether with the northern eastern part of the country, where SDF is ruling, sponsored by the Americans, as you've just said, Marwa, or whether about Sweden, or these two areas. And Sweden, many people are very positive. I came, as you said, this noon from Sweden. Many people are they want to be part of this new national project. They are very positive of it, and they are not happy that there are local militias with arms. They don't want to see arms, and they also complained that after the dissolution of the Syrian army, after the fall of the regime, arms are in the hands of so many people and gangs, and not always in the right hands. So people want the armies to be monopolized by the state, but they want to see the state acting and behaving like a sovereign, like their political national representative. So it is not clear on this level, and when I do believe that people would prefer to be part of this new Syria, when the profile of new Syria is becoming clearer. No one can say that it is clearer now. People are still happy, and I am still happy that the regime was overthrown, and we enjoy. It is true that we enjoy a high level of general freedoms, and then we express ourselves, we talk, we meet, we organize, but this is because the situation in the country is still very liquid. It is without forms, without institutional forms. So one is afraid that maybe in few weeks or in few months, the situation will not be like this any longer. So while it is like this, there should be, from those who are in power, there should be initiatives to unify the country and to offer what they have for these are our people, whether in northern eastern part of the country, and they are Kurds and non-Kurds, by the way. Maybe, I don't know, the majority maybe are non-Kurds, Arabs and others, or whether in Sweden. They prefer, I believe, to be part of New Syria, but they want to see this new Syria more just, more democratic, and more freer than it had been for a long time.
And here the Kurds should be included, correct? Like in the new Syria, like have a recognition of their cultural cultural rights, civil rights, being citizens, which they had been denied for years. However, there's also the issue of territorial integrity. Like, is it possible to have a new Syria with that separate canton, fragmentation, especially continued occupation by Israel and others? Muzna, I want to turn to you. There's a question here about going back to accountability and truth and reconciliation. Do you think we can refer to the case of post-apartheid South Africa for national reconciliation efforts in Syria? Would that be an example? And we know that South Africa is the country which has initiated that transitional justice process after the apartheid, allowing sort of an amnesty as long as there's the truth coming out. What do you think about that, as you've been working also closely on the ground with different groups and actors and communities?
Yeah, I think we will need to have like a hybrid and mixed approach for justice and accountability in terms of like having legal aspects as well also the social work, but also the reform in the legal reforms in within the Syrian constitution, like the all of the personal laws that we have in Syria to ensure that there's like the minimum of compensation for people in terms of like having like just like the truth about like what's happened and also what could be expected for the future. Also, not only South Africa, we can also rely on the experience of like indigenous people, where there's also genocide happened to them from the European settlers. And like, for example, in Canada, we have the Truth and Reconciliation plan that's been integrated in the work of the governments at all like ministerial levels and also the budget and everything. So we need to make sure that these like truth and justice, it's integrated in all, not only just by words, but also waiting for the legal framework that it's going to take for like years without having like the first results. And I think people are really hungry and looking for some like solutions and some just like directions on this file. And this is why like for example, we've been discussing in one of the advocacy group, just like if we can push the caretaker government to adopt the Article 12.3 from Rome Statute, which is to join the so that Syria can be referred to ICC. And like this is what happened actually with Ukraine. So then they're gonna just like investigate specific cases where we can at least give some guarantees for the government that there's no investigation will be given on them right now for what happened in northern Syria, and like always like all files of detainees, like, you know, human rights violation in within the Salvation government. So there's like some practicality, and sometimes like these solutions are hard to take. Just like it's not easy to decide. It's like, okay, having selective justice or like having like cherry picking these issues, like in terms of like, yeah, these should be like investigated and this is not. But we need to have like a clear plan integrated in the work of the government, and also collaboration with these countries like Rwanda, South Africa, Canada, and other countries that have been working on truth and reconciliation for a long time. And it's not done actually. It just like it's really, it's until now. I've been like in Rwanda last year, and like until now there's like after 30 years of genocide, people are try to heal and to understand what happened, and women still looking for answers for their beloved ones. So it's we need to expect that it's gonna be like long path and heavy path as well, and not necessarily we will have like a results that will be like the results that we are looking for unfortunately.
I want to encourage our audience to drop your questions in the Q&A feature. I know there's a hand which is raised. Could you please drop your questions, and I will ask our panelists. In the meantime, there's the issue of economic recovery. To have a strong, united, to reconstruct, we need the economic recovery. I know that Ahmed Al-Shara has been calling on the Syrian diaspora and the business community to invest back in the country. But we also hear about the Gulf states pouring money, possibly Turkey and others. How is that agenda going to be managed? Isn't there a risk also? And the European Union also is putting strings, right? Attaching strings also into the lifting of sanctions, the pouring of investments. How do you think this phase will unfold, and how should it be unfolding ideally if we want a true, sustainable, lasting recovery, but also keeping sort of the national unity, but also the sovereignty of the country? Yassin, what is your impression?
Yeah, sure. So Syria is really in need for a huge financial help. It is something that should happen now, yesterday actually. Sort of Marshall Project, like the one that the Americans helped the Europeans after the Second World War. But again, I would stress on the priority of politics. I don't agree with Shara and his speakers about the priority of economy. In the longer run, we need, well, in the very short run, we need financial help. And in the longer run, we need construction that will take years to yield its fruits. But again, I think the priority is to talk to the Syrian people. We are 25 millions, and we need the efforts and the smartness and the capacity of all these people. And this is politics. This is about politics. So I prioritize things this way. Politics, you have to build to send the gestures to rebuild the political system. At the same time, and it is good for the economic development. I mean, with lack of transparency and with people are not very positive about the situation, they are in darkness about what's happening in the country. Even financial help will not be very helpful to the country. So yeah, I see. Besides, the money will come either from the Arab Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Emirates, and this means that most probably money comes with conditions, and the conditions will be to even lower the ceiling of freedoms and rule of law. They don't want to see the people freer and political parties and political plurality and free elections and these things. Or money can come from Europe, not from the US. Under Trump, the US is trying to get money from everybody in the world, not to give money to anybody. So from European Unions, and they have their own agenda, which prioritizes stability and the war on terror and these issues, and maybe the security of Israel, the never satiated security of Israel. So that's why the priority should go to politics, and for our economy to prosper again. We need the participation of all the Syrian people, or the bigger majority of the Syrian people, which is again about representation and about the people feeling respected in their country and owning the country.
Thank you, Yassin. Muzna, do you want to add to that? I have a series of questions I can follow up with as well, if you want.
Yeah, just as like when it comes to sanctions, I'm not optimistic at all because like first it's like it is like a colonized tool, as a tool itself. It's not we all know it's not about like helping those like countries that are suffering from authoritarian regimes, but it's like to colonize and to control these countries. And also like when you hear from Iraqis about the post-Saddam economic situation. So they share just like it took them around like a 20 years to lift all sanctions and also to deal with the over-compliance from the banking system, de-risking approaches from like all of what is related to economy and banking system. So there's a lot of like components to add like the to this complex situation. But also we have conditions that it's like imposed on Syria in terms of like its sovereignty. When it comes, it's like, yeah, this is like the Turkey now the winner, and you need to do whatever like Turkey will impose on Syria. But in the same time, also you don't need to have like you should cut ties with Russia and Iran. Despite this is like should be like our like national question, but it shouldn't be like in a compromise with the sanctions itself. It's just like this is like also putting like people's lives on the same level with the sanctions and Syria's like sovereignty. At the same time, there's also we don't know it's like what's a Trump's plan about like Israel and Syria. So sanctions will be also a question, and the link between this, I think it's a clear. So I'm not optimistic on all like what's happened like the all like attempts to lift the sanctions, and it should be like one of our priorities. Like I do agree with Yassin, we have like this political component, but in the same time, the country is really dying. People are dying and suffering for like these 14 years with this like economic situation. And we have seen also the assets of Assad in the country. It's like he manipulated these sanctions through like Captagon trade and smuggling and everything. And he just like left with all of what he like the wealth he accumulated over these years. So I think it should be like one of our priorities as Syrians and like as a civil society, because Syria anyway will rely on humanitarian aid and remittances from expats and like refugees for like at least 3 years from now. Otherwise, will be not realistic when we are talking about like the economic situation in the country and all restrictions we have in Syria to start working from there and like to invest in Syria and also to rebuild these areas where refugees should be returned. And this is like one of the also the interests of European countries. It's just like they wanted to lift the sanctions, so then they can't send back refugees to Syria, but there is no place to stay. And this is also linked to sanctions. So it has like a multi dimensions that we need to keep in mind, and also to push for more national approach and the priorities for us as Assyrians, because like these Western countries and also neighboring countries of Syria are really playing with this card to push for their interests and gains.
And not allow the country to be again a battleground, right, of geostrategic, economic interest, and have really a Syrian focused and led reconstruction and recovery. I have several questions that I'm going to take two at a time, two, three. One is by Gamal Mansour, who's asking Yassin, after the self-appointment by Ahmed Sharia as president, should there be some counterbalancing happening vis-a-vis the existing interim authority, or will an adversarial confrontational stance be advisable? Or should actually Syrians engage positively with these authorities and build some form of internal pressure to curb the authorities' excesses? Is it like by joining or engaging, or should there be an opposition force to just bring some change and provide some autonomy and independence in that sense?
What's good about the present situation is that Damascus is one of the busiest cities in the world, maybe in people meetings and organizations, discussions. Almost every day you hear about many activities, but the weak point about them is that they are mostly in Damascus, less in other cities. So while the situations like this, maybe what balances power is the new organizations and new parties and groups that are being formed. Well, I don't approve of some hysterical sentiments or hysterical expressions we've heard since yesterday. But I guess we have to be always skeptical about powers, to be the ones in power and try to curb them. And we don't curb them unless we are organized and build our own, I mean, develop our own power. So this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing, not only against any authoritarian tendencies, and these authoritarian tendencies are already there. It is good for the future of the country. We've been struggling for democracy for long decades, and we are in a better position right now to, in a way, affect some renewal of our struggle on this front.
Muzna, what is your stance on that? Engage or stay in the opposition?
I think it's like there's like the main point here. It's like from which like a point we're starting this engagement with the government. I would say like as a feminist, I'm really struggling in a way that any involvement with the government could be interpreted as a promotion for the for Ahmed Shah himself and also for his government. But in the same way, from practical point of view, we need to be involved and we need to play the political tactics that we have to push for better solutions. It's gonna be like also personal like choice, but I'm more with having like a practical solution, like playing the game with this government more than just like taking a distance from them, because like otherwise it's like the vacuum that we will have is gonna be like played with other people. It's like anyway, it's like there's people who gonna like support him and like push him for more, but like we need to really occupy our space and like claim our space and also put more pressure, because like we are part of the revolution that most likely he is not recognizing in the victory, and also in like how he is like now ruling the country through like self-appointment. So
And we don't want the picture of Ahmed al-Sharia with the delegation of women to be just performative, right?
exactly, yeah.
To appeal to the international community, but we want these women to be included and to be part of the process. I want to move on now to two questions, and then there will be a last one as well about the Kurdish issue, and that's to the two of you. Murhab Jwijati is asking, is the Turkish-Israeli conflict over the Kurdish issue looming? And we know that Netanyahu has called on the Syrian Kurds and to protect them and to say that he would be happy to sponsor them, sort of doing divide and conquer, strategy like usual with the minorities and the different groups. And Mariam, our Syrian student here at Georgetown, could you speak more on the negotiations between the caretaker government and the SDF, particularly in regards to the reconciliation of power into a unified Syrian military, which is facing difficulties? And that goes back again to the fact of the SDF renouncing its military bloc, integrating an army, or keeping its military power. Yassin?
The question is for whom?
For the two of you, whoever would like to start.
So well, for the Israelis, it is the colonial pattern of protecting minorities, not protecting minorities from the majority. So it is to be, it is the colonial thing that we saw actually starting from the days of the Oriental question and the last half or the last, and the era of imperialism in Europe. So Israel is by no means different from other colonial powers, and it is a colonial power with a lot of blood on their hands, and of course they have been dealing with the first thing they did to New Syria is to deal with it as an enemy, and they are against the stability and against prosperous Syria. This is for sure. So this is just for them another asset to exploit and to manipulate for their own interests. I mean, the ones who has been crushing the Palestinian people for decades will not care about other peoples in the region. It is just for very selfish interests and for tools for them to play, and to weaken all the countries around them. So I am not aware about, for the second question, I am not aware of negotiations. I mean, and I am afraid, to be honest, as long as it is a Syrian thing, it will not be difficult to solve and to achieve progress. But when, look, what has made the Kurdish issue in Syria a bit more difficult is that two sides exported to Syria their own civil war, and we had our, at that time, I mean years ago, our own civil war. These two sides are the Turkish government and the PKK. So it is easy to solve it when it is Syrian thing. So I'm not very happy with the way the Turkish government has a word about this, and maybe it is good that the SDF ends its tie with PKK. Turkey is a neighboring country. We had 900 kilometers of borders with Turkey. We cannot afford antagonizing Turkey by this relation, this, I don't know how to call it, this connection between the Syrian, the SDF or whatever, PYD, whatever, and the PKK. This is not fair for Syria, and it should be solved. I encourage a political solution, negotiations that guarantees the equality in citizenship and equality in culture and in developing the national personality of our Kurdish citizens.
Muzna, do you want to?
Yeah, I think the baby steps that been done by Muslim Abadi by like addressing the Syrian people, or just like having the Syrian the revolution flag behind him, been good like a kickoff for the situation of Kurdish Arab situation, but 2 points will be like crucial for this fight, because when the funding for SDF itself as a like for Kurdish forces, it's just like we know, like Trump wanted to cut off all of the funding and all of the foreign aid, and now because of the last stop work order that he was ordered like just like 2 days ago for foreign aid. So now even the guards of Rosh camp have no like salaries. So now there's like a funding issue within SDF itself. While the caretaker government, or like Ahmed Shara government, has the money and the funding from Qatar and Turkey and others. The second point, which is like also the situation that the file that SDF has like as a political card, which is also the former fighters of ISIS in Rosh camp. So they are also like a kind of a threat on Syria, since like ISIS already threatened Syria and threatened the Ahmad al-Shara government, and in the same time about like for the Western countries, because they don't want to repatriate their citizens, but in the same time, it's a card within the hand of SDF. So we don't know. It's all of up in the air, and we don't know. It's like how the situation will be concluded. But these two issues are really essential in pushing for a solution, maybe in a positive way, negative way, we don't know, but like these are like what we have as an interpretation to but there's a good move, I would say, just like as I said, it's like it's one of the most complicated file in Syria, and also the question of the governance system in the future is going to be like decentralized, confederation or whatever, because like it's been clear for everyone, including Ahmad Sharia, that Syria been like in a governed way for the last 14 years, been through like a different parts, different decentralized approach, and Ahmad Sharia has no power nor the capacity to govern in Syria in a centralized way. So I think it's also this the capacity and capabilities of this government will be also a pushing a question for them to conclude like a good agreement with SDF and like the eastern part of Syria. But now there is no clarity. But for sure, the Turkey mandate on this file will be the dominant than it's like what we wanted to achieve as Assyrians in this file.
It's also worth reminding everyone that the Rojava Western Kurdistan canton, which was declared by the Syrian Kurds in 2013, was done with a sort of de facto agreement of the Assad regime, so that would put pressure on Turkey, which had become the enemy of the regime as well. And since then, it's been like a constant fight, and Turkey is justifying its occupation because of the Syrian Kurds and the PYD's link with the PKK. I have a question by Basileus, which is linking also to the Kurds. And then a last question. We're going to go a bit longer because we started late, so just a few minutes more. So Basileus is thanking you very much, Yassin and Muzna, for sharing your insights. He agrees with Yassin about the obsession with the economy and the Western audience at the expense of addressing the local population and their concerns and representation. I will skip the first question because Yassin and Muzna have addressed it about the ambiguity of the transitional period and the declaration of Jolani as self-appointed president, but I'll jump into the second. Why did the caregiver government remain silent towards the Israeli colonial expansion beyond the 1974 buffer zone while mobilizing public opinion against the SDF? That's one question. And there was a previous question raised by an anonymous attendee. What is your stance on claims that points towards American intervention in the toppling of the Assad regime? And I think we will end if there's no more question on these two questions.
Well, let me start from the last question. We don't have, well, this looks like a conspiracy thing. We don't have concrete information about this. And if you ask my opinion, my own opinion, I believe that if the Americans had time, they would have guaranteed the stagnation of the situation in Syria for longer years. So I don't think that there was a hidden mind engineering the situation, and this hidden mind lies in the White House or Pentagon, or I don't believe in this. I know that this is a theory that's adopted by so many for different reasons, but I don't believe that this is true. What was the first question,
It's about
Marwa?
the caretaker government remaining silent about Israel's colonial expansion.
Yeah.
At the
yeah,
same time,
yeah.
very vocal about the Kurds, the SDF.
So they, I guess, look, uh, the Israeli expanded their occupation and destroyed the Syrian capacity in the very same on December 8th, the very same day of toppling the regime. And I tend to think that because the ones who has just seized power were very weak and they wanted to appease the whole world, they didn't find the right words, and of course they are blamable for this. This is your uh, the more lands of the country were occupied, and they should resort to the international law and to say that this is not acceptable. This means that if this is okay, this means that the international law will become invalid everywhere in the world. They should have find um, um, they should have found a statement with calm language to protest against this uh, uh, colonial expansion. Um, uh, yeah, but I understand it because they didn't want to antagonize any side, any power in the world. So this is my explanation for it. What was
And
the relation of SDF? What's the
just
thing related
like
to the
talking
SDF?
about SDF and the arms they have, but not being silent on Israel. That was the contrast that was made in the question.
They were not. They didn't say much about SDF. The ones who talked about SDF are more the Turkish government, and so they didn't. No, they didn't have inflammatory words about SDF. This is, to my knowledge, this is not true.
Going back to the Jolan, it's worth reminding also that the Syrian people have a very strong stance in terms of the consideration that the Jolan is Syrian and is still occupied by Israel. So I think the HTS have to maneuver very carefully in being maybe too silent or conciliatory, but also claiming its sovereignty and its rights because of the occupation since 1967. Muzna, would you like to
Yeah,
address?
so Shebani had like a public intervention about Israel, about like the current situation of like military expansion in southern Syria, but definitely like there is no capacity for this government to deal with Israel, and also I would say it's like the dominant role of Saudi Arabia and the plan of normalization with Israel from the Gulf country. I think it will be also a key question for in the near future on Syria-Israeli relations. But in the same time, yeah, as you mentioned, it's like his name, Jolani. It's like really scary for Israeli society and for Israeli government itself. And yeah, the fall of the regime, it's like also part of like the I would say just like the new status quo in the MENA region, which is after October 7th, where Iran and Hezbollah are very weak and they can't afford like the cost of protecting Assad. As well, also Russia is also weak because of the current situation in Ukraine and like the negotiations that are happening now between the Western countries, Ukraine and Russia. So no one had the capacity to support Assad and to protect him, while also Turkey been trying for a year and a half to normalize with the regime, and his like answer was always like no, no, no. It's like and his like a well-known sentence is like why we're gonna meet to drink like a juice. So I think yeah, all of these factors and also 14 years of revolution, the sanctions and everything surrounding Syria push for this situation, but no one like actually had in mind that we will have the fall of the regime this year. But definitely, it's a part of all of the current new reality for the Middle East now after October 7th.
I think it's time now to, yes, I have a last question from Khairuddin, but I think we need to close following the revolution. Yeah, a power vacuum. Is there a power vacuum? We discussed all of that about the transition. I think we need to let Yassin go. He's in Syria. It's about 11 p.m. now. Thank you so much for joining us, making sure that the connection, despite the obstacles. And Muzna, thank you so much also for joining us today. I want to say it's a moment of joy, still celebration. Let us celebrate, be happy, be joyful, and at the same time, be cautious and vigilant about how the new Syria will be shaped. And you've contributed tremendously to the discussion. And it was really a privilege and an honor to have you both, and to have Yassin from Syria, live in Syria, sharing also your impressions and your analysis, and Muzna, who was just there recently and who's constantly on the ground with the Syrian communities as well, inside and outside. Thank you both very much. Thank you to the audience for wonderful questions as well, challenging questions. And we will see you soon, maybe in Damascus, inshallah.
Thank you.
Goodbye.